I'm Joe Chisholm from Rebellion Dogs Publishing.
And I'm Bill Schaberg, the author of 30 Things, Practical Advice for Living Well. Just a short little description in each one of those 30 chapters about the advice that I got from someone else, the story behind it, and then a little bit of a story about what I did or didn't do with that excellent piece of advice.
I'd really like to start focusing on the practical part of this because you give everyday suggestions to everyday problems I have all the time. But you're not saying join the gym and we'll check back in a year. You're not saying go to this 28-day intensive program and your problems will be solved. You give me suggestions on things I can do today to improve my inner peace, to improve the relationships that matter to me, and feel better about them tonight. Joe Nowinski, Dr. Joe Nowinski, a clinical psychologist and quite a prolific author himself, he reviewed your book, and it really, in a way, I think it speaks to this. He says 30 Things is written from a position of humility rather than authority, which makes the advice offered here easy to digest. And this stands in sharp contrast to the patronizing approach that so typically characterizes most advice writing. So let's put a pin in that for now. But Bill, can you just share how 30 Things came to be and what your process was?
Yeah, thank you, Joe. And thank you, Dr. Nowinski. Outstanding. I really appreciate noticing the format that I tried to bring to this book wasn't so much me dictating advice, but telling you about great advice that I got. It's a whole different approach. The book really started because there was an article in the New York Times a few years ago where the writer asked the Times readers to send in the best advice they'd ever had and that they were willing to share. And he selected the best 25 selections. He selected the best 25 suggestions that were given to him. And I thought, oh man, this is going to be just a great article. And I started reading it, and it got worse and worse and worse, in my opinion. I mean, I got halfway through the article and I was thinking, really, that's the best you can do? Like one of them was breathe, and another one was, be a gentleman. Probably the most worthless one was, well, you've never seen a dead cat up in a tree, have you? I was like, I got halfway through this article and I thought, I can think of five great pieces of advice that I've been given in my lifetime that are way better than any of these things this guy's put in this article. So I started to write those down and tell the story behind how I came to that piece of advice, who told me it, or where I read it, or where I heard it, and then how it applied or didn't apply to me in my life. And as I was doing that, I thought, well, this would make a nice little book, but if nothing else, it's going to be an outstanding legacy item for my three grandchildren.
Yes, it's a great legacy book, I think, but this challenges me. I'm not Generation Next, and this puts a spotlight on my own all too comfortable sense of, well, I'm doing the best I can. What else can I do? Again, you're offering practical advice, suggestions, not directions. There's chapters, for instance. So one of them is you can pretend to care, but you can't pretend to be there. Ouch. Or another one that gets me going in my guts is I can really identify with your emotional cowardice. In this way, you really invite the reader to look at some practical everyday issues.
I really did try to stick to very practical advice. Now, those are two separate things. Uh, these days, most of us are brought up in this self-reliant American culture where we're not supposed to be asking people for advice. We're supposed to be relying on ourselves in all things. Don't worry, I can figure this out all by myself. Well, how's that working for you, as Dr. Phil says? I mean, I found that when I was open to advice, when I put myself in a position to actually have people know what's going on with me so that they could, first of all, offer me some decent advice, but then also hear it that I needed to hear that advice. It wasn't something that I figured out by myself. It was something that somebody else had lived through and figured out for themselves, and they were sharing it with me as a possible solution as a practical solution to my particular problems.
One of the aspects I really enjoy, Bill, is your storytelling tradition. You're telling me where you found out this vice, from who, and what you did with it. And the other thing that amazes me is the brevity. You explain each of these 30 things in 4 pages. Amazing.
Well, that was also something I was really shooting for, Joe, because it's my experience that I need to hear personal stories and they need to be short enough so that I don't miss the point. I can't go digging through pages and pages of things to get the kernel of information I need to actually say, oh, this is something I should be doing, maybe. Maybe I should be doing this myself. And I just have a hard time listening to advice from other people when it's packaged elaborately and in long-winded sentences and paragraphs. So I try to keep it really short, crystal clear, and to the point.
Yes, again, I get to what I love as a reader. You're showing me, you're not telling me. But by doing this, you also use your own examples, your own foibles, your own weaknesses. You lead with your vulnerability, naked to the world. Did that style of writing make you uncomfortable?
Well, yes, in fact, it did. And you and I have talked about this quite a bit as we were going through the process of preparing this book for publication. There's a lot of personal details in here, but personally, I didn't see how I could deliver those messages in any other way that would be effective. And it just it's not about this is what you should be doing. I'm not trying to tell anybody what they should be doing. I'm saying I was in this situation and somebody or someone or something told me this wonderful little piece of advice. And I noticed that if in fact I took that piece of advice, it might actually help me in a very practical way get through my day or this particular issue or problem with much more ease and comfort. And all I had to do was to pay attention to what was being told to me and then be open to actually using that practical advice in a practical way.
Well, I was also amazed at all of the different situations and places and characters and people who were the heroes in your stories, really, who came to you with this sage advice that you're sharing.
Well, Joe, I mean, obviously, great advice can come from almost anywhere. So for me, it was a question of realizing this, acknowledging this, and then buying into the fact that I needed to get my radar up a little bit and make sure I didn't pass up any great pieces of advice that were coming to me. And those pieces of advice came from all kinds of people. It came from friends, it came from relatives, it came from business associates, it came from therapists, it came from philosophers that I read and podcasts, things that I listen to on how to go through life with less bad friction, let's say, and I once I got my radar up for those kind of things, I was just amazed at how much great advice there was out there that I could use in a very, very practical way to live my life, let's say, a little bit more comfortable in my skin.
Well, thanks for sharing a little bit about behind the scenes of 30 things, practical advice for living well. I think this is a great idea. I hope we can do it again. But for those of you watching, please visit either rebelliondogspublishing.com or amazon.com for some sample pages and information on how to buy the book if you'd like.
Thank you, Joe. Great job.